latest session, and we hope to learn from the various jurisdictions that are here in Africa. Specifically, we'll be learning from Rwanda, Uganda, Malawi, and Ghana. So I'm very excited for this discussion. And before we begin, I would just like to start by introducing the panelists who I have confirmed that they are all here. And essentially, they will give a brief presentation about their jurisdiction and their market in terms of who are the players within the market, hopefully, what are the requirements, at least at a very broad level, and possibly if there are any requirements for innovators, which I think is very useful to the cohort members who are listening in. So I'll start by introducing the first panelist. We have Mr. Kevin Walungama Katete from Uganda, and he has over 11 years work experience in the insurance sector. He's been with the IRA of Uganda for the last 6 years, and before that, he was with the UAP Old Mutual Life for 5 years. At the IRA, he currently holds the position of Senior Licensing and Compliance Officer, where he leads the team in charge of licensing insurance players. He's also a member of the Product Approval Committee and is the chair of the Regulatory Sandbox Committee. Kevin has a master's degree in risk management from Glasgow Caledonian University in the UK. He's also a certified impact trainer in insurance under the ILO and ITC. He's also a chartered insurance practitioner, and he's also an associate of the Chartered Insurance Institute of the UK. And he's also a grad of IRM under the Institute of Risk Management. And finally, Kevin holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Actuarial Science from Makerere University, Kampala. So that is the profile of Mr. Kevin Katete. So the next panelist we have in the room with us today is Mr. Kwagwanji Mangochi, who is from Malawi and is currently the chief examiner responsible for insurance and pension regulation in the Financial Sector Regulation Department of the Reserve Bank of Malawi. And he joined the insurance supervision team in the year 2008 and has worked both in supervision and regulation space for insurance and pension. Thirdly, we also have Mr. Biganiro Stephen, who is from Rwanda. He's a senior inspector, insurance and pension supervision at the National Bank of Rwanda since January 2017. And he's been instrumental in developing and implementing risk-based regulations, IFRS 17, as well as the insurance sector supervisory processes. Stephen has also been part of the technical working group that considered and incorporated comments from in-country consultations on the draft ESC insurance regulations. He was also part of the technical working group that was influential in development and implementation of the ESC insurance certification program under the ESC Financial Sector Development and Regionalization Project between the ESC Secretariat, World Bank, and other development partners. Stephen holds a master's degree in accounting and finance. He also holds a bachelor's degree in insurance, and he's a certified public accountant, Kenya. So Stephen is our third panelist. And finally, we have Mr. Mohamed Hafiz Isahaku, who is from Ghana. And Mohamed is an experienced insurance and financial risk analyst and a chartered risk manager. Currently, he heads the newly established Innovation Hub unit of the National Insurance Commission of Ghana. And prior to this role, he served as the head of licensing and financial analysis unit of the National Insurance Commission. That is between the years 2017 to February to 2019. And he's also worked as a risk manager for Enterprise Group from February 2019 to June 2020, where he's held direct responsibility over insurance risk management for 2 subsidiaries. And I think these are the largest life and non-life insurance firms in Ghana. He's also the lead operational risk manager for Enterprise Group's West African Initiative. In terms of qualification, Mohammed is a fellow of the Global Academy of Finance and Management, USA, with certifications such as Certified Risk Analyst and Operational Risk Manager. He's also an associate member of the Chartered Insurance Institute of the UK and holds a bachelor's degree in management studies. Finally, Mohammed has 11 years of insurance regulatory experience. And of course, 1.5 years of this was working for a group with 2 subsidiaries being regulated by the National Insurance Commission of Ghana. So we have a high-powered delegation in terms of the panelists that are here with us, and they'll be sharing with us their regulatory environments, and hopefully the participants can engage with them on, what are the requirements for those specific markets, what does it take to actually transact in those in those markets, and what are the challenges. So I'll take this opportunity to invite Mr. Kevin Katete from Uganda, just to give us a brief overview of the Ugandan insurance market in terms of the regulatory requirements and possibly who are the players. So welcome, Kevin Katete. You can share your screen. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. Yes, so thank you so much, Moses, for the very good welcome. I think I need to get you on board for any other engagement I have to at least introduce me. You've done a fantastic job.
Anytime.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna continue. I think I've been introduced very well by Moses, and this is basically a brief presentation on Uganda. I will not be able to cover everything because it is a lot to cover when it comes to regulation. However, I think hopefully from this you'll be able to get a good idea of what opportunities lie in Uganda for innovators like yourselves. So basically, I'd like to start with who we are as IRA. And we're basically a commission that has turned into a regulator. And we were first formed as a commission in 1996, established under a statute, and then were converted into a regulator and a supervisor in 2011, and are currently under the mandate of the 2017 Insurance Act. And basically, our mandate is to ensure the effective administration, supervision, regulation, and control of insurance business in Uganda. Yeah. And our vision is to be the model regulator of a developed and secure insurance industry. And to achieve that, we want to create an enabling regulatory environment for sustainable growth of the insurance industry while upholding the best practices. So how we view innovation as a regulator, we basically look at it through 3 angles. First, our mandate under the Insurance Act and the regulations. Secondly, we're also guided by our own core values, our core corporate values, and I'll show you what I mean later. And then also we have strategic initiatives under the organization strategy, and I'll also show you what I mean by that. So basically, under our Insurance Act, which is our mother law, it provides that we should be able to promote effective competition in the sector in the interests of consumers, the growth and development of the insurance sector, and the development of an inclusive insurance sector. And for this to be achieved, definitely it's important to factor in innovation. Otherwise, we look at a sector where it is specific to a particular cohort of customers. Yeah. And then in terms of our values, we have 3 values, and the one that really stands out that should, I think, be positive for anyone in the fintech space is innovation. So our board saw fit to to revise our core values. We had about 6 core values a few years back, including teamwork, professionalism, integrity. And they thought the way the world is headed, if we were to meet our mission and our vision, being a model regulator and providing an enabling environment, then we needed to include innovation within our core values. And then finally, this sipped into our strategic initiative, which the third strategic initiative of the institution is related to facilitating market growth and development. And we want to do this in order to ensure increased innovative insurance products. So just to give you an understanding of the law itself, the law basically is the basis for our supervision and our regulation. It gives us our powers. Yeah. And what would be important to focus on is the various sections within our act that either prohibit or set requirements for approval. And Section 9 prohibits the use of the word insurance, assurance, or reinsurance. So if you're to enter the Ugandan insurance market, and as a business you want to use this, just the words alone, you would need a written approval from the IRA. Then Section 34 actually requires our approval through a license for you to conduct insurance business. Yeah, so if you enter Uganda and you plan to operate under the radar, unfortunately, you'll be breaking the law. And the Section 35 provides for the different categories of risk-taking licenses. By that, I mean insurance companies, reinsurers, HMOs, and microinsurance organizations. Then we also have Section 87, which provides for intermediary licenses that include reinsurance brokers, insurance agents. I'll show you the different list of intermediaries that we do license. And then Section 64 requires the regulatory approval for premium rating, commissions, proposal forms, and policy documents. So what this basically means, in short, if you're innovating a product and you want to sell it, this product needs regulatory approval. Yeah. And then finally, we also have regulations that are specific for insurance that's sold on mobile, or what we call mobile insurance. So we provide for this under the Mobile Insurance Regulations 2020. And as such, arrangements with telecoms or mobile companies and platform providers would require regulatory approval from us. So once you're aware of this, then I think the safest thing to say is first approach the regulator before attempting to engage in any insurance-related business in Uganda. Then, okay, I hope you can see my screen still.
Yes, Kevin, we can see your screen.
Okay, so basically, in 2020, we wrote about 1.6 trillion Uganda shillings in terms of underwriting premiums, and have been growing steadily. This was basically about a 6% growth from the previous year. And definitely our growth was hampered by COVID. Yeah, COVID did affect the growth. However, we have about 21 non-life insurance companies, 9 life insurance companies, 2 reinsurance companies. We do also have offices for ZEPRI and Africa Re. We do not license them, but they were established under, I'd say, there's an instrument of the law that establishes them, and so we do not regulate them. We have insurance brokers who are licensed, 40 of them, and 2 reinsurance brokers. We have 19 banks that operate as bank assurance agents, and one microfinance bank that operates as a bank assurance agent. And then we have 29 licensed loss assessors, surveyors, loss adjusters, yeah, and what we call insurance surveyors. And then we have 5 licensed health membership organizations. And then in terms of agents, we have over 3,000 licensed insurance agents, and this include both individual agents and corporate agents. In Uganda, agents are tied agents, so they must have a principal or an insurance company who they're representing. Yeah. And our law actually requires that in order for you to operate for more than 2 insurance companies, uh, you'd need approval. And even for more than one, they shouldn't be selling the same class of business. So for example, you'd have to be an agent of a life insurer and a non-life insurer. Yeah. Then in terms of how we approach innovation, I think there's one thing I've missed. Sorry about that. We do have capital adequacy requirements for the life and non-life reinsurance and HMO licenses, and those are actually stipulated in our capital adequacy regulations. So if there's anyone who is interested in starting up any of those, then that would be the regulation to go to. And basically, a life insurance company will require 4.5 billion Uganda shillings as minimum capital to start up. And then going forward, we are subject to risk-based supervision. So we have risk-based capital with a standard of 200%. Yeah. And then also, when we look at reinsurance companies, the minimum capital for starting a reinsurer is 10 billion Uganda shillings. And for a non-life insurance company, it's 6 billion shillings. So for HMOs, you'd need 1 billion shillings. For microinsurance organization, you need, currently it's 100 million shillings, but it could rise with the new micro insurance regulations that are currently being discussed. To start up a brokerage firm, you need at least 75 million Uganda shillings as capital. Yeah. So this is all stipulated in our capital adequacy regulations. That's for the risk-taking entities, and then our intermediary regulations for entities like brokers and loss assessors and surveyors and adjusters. We don't have any capital requirements for loss assessors, adjusters, or even agents. So an agent just needs to pay a license fee, which is 100,000 Uganda shillings. So for innovation, we look at it from 2 aspects. We have our regulatory sandbox guidelines. So we set up a regulatory sandbox back in December 2020, and basically the purpose of it was to establish a framework for which we could introduce a safe space for fintechs to come and experiment and innovate within our environment. Unfortunately, if you are to go through the different laws that I have talked about, we do not have anything that talks about fintechs or insurtechs, or even innovation as a word does not come up. However, because we are looking at inclusive insurance products and developing the market, we saw fit that we can use guidelines to meet that mandate that is set within the section 11 of our Insurance Act. So basically, what this guideline does is it provides guidance to different entities that have innovative products and want to participate within our market or participate within the sandbox to come in and test these different solutions that they have. So what the guidelines do is they provide for admittance through an application and an authorization on our part in writing. It sets out the requirements for admittance, and there are several requirements that must be met that are stated in the guidelines for us to consider admitting you. So for example, we would need things like evidence of company registration, would need a concept note, would need a rollout and a testing plan, a brief description of the system that is being developed, a target market that you intend to to target with your product, the key performance indicators that you are going to use, and things like contact persons and and professional indemnity insurance if it is required. And then we also provide guidance on how we as the authority will evaluate your application. So it's mainly prescriptive. It's not really a rule. Basically, it prescribes that we will look at and weigh the risks that you present to the customers, the risks that you present to yourself as an entity, the product or service that is being proposed, has it previously existed, or is it a new channel, or it's something that already exists and may not actually require to use the sandbox as a platform. So the different things that we consider are actually listed within these guidelines, and the guidelines can be found on our website. And we also prescribe the period within the guidelines, which is basically 12 months with a possibility for a further 6-month extension depending on the circumstances. And then we also provide for the different requirements after admittance into the sandbox. So for example, once you're admitted into the sandbox, you'll be required to report regularly on a monthly basis on your progress. You'll be required to put risk management controls in place to ensure that whatever risks arise, you're actually controlling and managing them. And then also, you'd need to put in place I'd say controls or ways of handling consumer redress. So the other thing that we have in place to spark or to encourage innovation is we introduced what we call the annual Industry Innovation Awards. And last year we actually carried out the awards with different categories of players being awarded for innovative products. So we had a category for non-life companies, life companies, insurance brokers, and even insurance agents. So definitely this is something that we're looking to continue to do. And there will be an innovation award this year. And there are also considerations for including participants within the sandbox for the innovation awards. That's all from me. Thank you for listening. I don't know if this is the point for questions, but over to you, Moses.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for that elaborate presentation on the Ugandan experience. Maybe just as I encourage the participants to post their comments or raise their hands, I just wanted to reflect on some key points that you raised, which I found to be quite interesting. And I think the first one is within the organizational values, you have innovation, which is, I think, gives you an opportunity to actually leverage on this when you're trying to develop some of the initiatives that you have. So, and I can actually confirm that not all regulators have this as part of their values. There's usually a lot of focus on, integrity, professionalism, as you said earlier. So I just want to congratulate IRA Uganda on that. Then maybe an initial reaction to the various provisions that you indicated earlier of the law, which where you said that the requirements say that for you to actually use the word insurance in Uganda, you have to be licensed. So I think that I found it to be very interesting. And I was just thinking about the innovators within this cohort. Would it be as easy as just changing your name, for you to actually transact, or depending on your business model, would you actually need to meet such, would you actually meet the requirements of that section? Then I also found what I found interesting was that as Uganda, you already have regulatory sandbox guidelines in place, and you have actually managed to assess the applicants on a case-by-case basis, which is, I think, very appropriate. I was just curious, how many players do you have currently? And maybe you can respond to that as well.
Okay, thank you for that. We currently have 2 applicants who were admitted into the sandbox recently. So it was a long process of back and forth, but eventually they met all the requirements, and they're currently, I think one is within 1 month of being in the sandbox, and the other is also just within a few weeks. But yes, they're just 2. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that response, Kevin. Finally, I had a comment on the innovation awards that you have, which is, I think, a great initiative to actually stimulate innovation within your industry. I was just wondering, do these extend to or do you qualify if you're outside the licensed player categories? Can you actually qualify for these innovation awards, or must you be a licensed entity to actually qualify?
Okay, thank you. So initially, the thinking was around what we operate through is the law, and if we're to reflect back on how the law was drafted, insurance is really a well guarded area. We basically say if you're to operate here, you need a license. So initially, the innovation awards was specifically for licensed players. But with the introduction of the regulatory sandbox, we are reviewing what other potential innovators can benefit from the awards. It's something that we're still working on, so I don't think I can comment any further than I have.
Okay.
Yeah, but there are discussions on that. I submit.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for those reactions. I don't know whether we have any comments or questions to Kevin Katete from the IRA Uganda. I see we have one comment from Elias Omondi, and he says, "Great work in Uganda." I don't know whether there are any... Yes, Elias. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's great work being done in Uganda, and I think that's a model that most countries would really replicate. But my question is around the sandboxing that they're taking. Which approach is it? Thematic sandbox? Is it a policy guided sandbox? What kind of sandbox are you developing in Uganda? Because there are different types of sandboxes that regulators would implement.
Okay, maybe if you could throw more light on what you mean by policy guided and thematic.
Yeah, so there are different types of sandboxes, and for instance, if you look at the Kenyan sandbox, which hopefully should be able to take up, it's more like a thematic one. It's looking at inclusion. So ideally, the products that they are looking to target with that particular sandbox is towards increasing inclusion. Then the next is types of policy. So for instance, you've realized that maybe your regulation in terms of capital is quite high. So you would assume that your sandbox is only looking into reducing capital for particular players. So there are different fronts, and then there is what we call a more open sandbox. It's just open for innovation, and that's it. So that's basically what I'm referring to as what type of sandbox you are looking to provide.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. I'd say at the moment we didn't have a specific target of say a particular type of innovator we're looking for. We were looking at inclusion definitely because it is one of the sections under our act that we rely on to draw our mandate from, and also we're looking at our mandate for developing the market. So based on that, if you look at the Ugandan insurance industry, our penetration is below 1% and has been below 1% for as long as I have been in insurance. And it means that in terms of say the micro insurance space, or there's a really huge section of the population that are not taking up insurance. So definitely there's an element of thematicness in that. However, we were not very explicit in how we have drafted our framework, because our framework is built around the guideline and the act. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, that's great. And again, I think generally having such an open fronted sandbox is good. The only thing that maybe most of the time regulators will need to think about, and again, this is something that we will be discussing in the future sessions with you and the insurtechs that are basically participating in this, is that around the arbitrages that maybe sandboxes would create. But yeah, it's great because I think having a sandbox in a way provides, I would say, a platform for people to think and people to test, and that's it. Testing is really, really important. Great work in Uganda. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Elias, for that reaction. I don't know whether there are any other comments from the members. I can see, I think we have a comment from Kevin Joga, who says, great initiative there in Uganda, providing opportunities for local insurtech innovators through the sandbox. So at this juncture, I'd like to move quickly to the next panelist. And I think I didn't make it clear at the beginning. At the end of the presentations, we will have a brief panel discussion on some of the challenges that or solutions that regulators are developing to address issues related to innovation. So I would like at this juncture to invite Mr. Kwagwanji Mangochi from Malawi to share his presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Katete, Kevin.
You're welcome.
And welcome, Kwagwanji.
Thank you. Let me see if I can share. I hope everyone can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen. Okay. Yes, we can see it clearly.
Yes. Good after. It's afternoon here. I hope good evening, possibly, where everyone is.
Yes.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'll be presenting on the insurance regulatory landscape in Malawi. just to say from the onset, Malawi, we do not have a standalone regulatory authority as is in other jurisdictions. So we are still in the central bank, the Reserve Bank of Malawi. Basically, all the financial institutions are regulated by the Reserve Bank. So we've got from banks, insurance, pension, capital markets, microfinance, everything is regulated within the Reserve Bank, departments of the Reserve Bank. So we are more or less an integrated regulator as it is, but it does have its drawbacks because when implementing some of these policies, you have to consider what the whole bank thinks and how it would impact, as opposed to say if you are a standalone regulator, you can just do what you see fit for the market. So with that, just a brief on Malawi. The population is 18 million. It's 86% is in the rural, and about 10.5 million of those are below 15. So it's quite a young and upcoming population. For insurance penetration, the figure is at 1.57%. But insurance density, this is the premiums over the population. We've got about $7 per person. That's insurance density. For gross premium for the general insurance, it was about 59.8 billion. And for the life insurance, it's 46.1 billion. Apologies, that should be in Malawi kwacha, not US dollars. I've put the rate for the Malawi kwacha to the dollar below there so people can convert to see exactly how big the market is. In as far as financial inclusion, we've got some initiatives to try to increase inclusion in the market, and we've seen that so far we are bearing fruits. Access to formal financial services and products has gone up. We are now at 45 in 2008. That figure should be around 50, 53 as we speak now. And we've also got some statistics for women, access to those financial services and products. It's also has gone up to about 43, and also access to mobile money accounts. This just shows access to finance, possibly banking and so forth. That has gone up to about 58%. So far, we've got 81% of the urban Malawian dwellers, they have access to mobile phones. And this is one of the areas which we think can be utilized to increase insurance penetration and increase resilience in the market. So just background, Malawi, you have to be licensed as a general insurance company or a life insurance company. We do not have any composite insurance companies. So at the moment, we've got 8 general insurers, 6 life insurers, 1 insurance company, 24 insurance brokers, 1 reinsurance company, and 1 composite broker who does both reinsurance broking and insurance broking. So that's the makeup of the market. We've got a number of smaller entities like the insurance agents. We've got tied agents for the life insurance companies. We've got about 500 of those, and we've got 40 general insurance agents. We've also got 4 banks that are doing bank assurance, and we've got a number of 16 loss assessors, 1 claim settling agent, and 1 funeral insurance provider. So that's a brief of the players in the market. But for the sector, it's regulated mainly through the Financial Services Act and the Insurance Act. So the Financial Services Act is the umbrella act for all the financial sector in Malawi, while specifically for the insurance sector, we've got the Insurance Act 2010. As we speak, we are amending that act. We are bringing in more relevant issues, and the issue of InsurTech just has come out, and it's possibly one of the areas that will be included in the amendments. But just to say that the amendments were done about some 3 years ago, but we were facing some challenges and bottlenecks. So possibly we'll have to freshen up the act, the amendment bill to encompass these new areas. So the Insurance Act empowers the registrar to issue directives to better implement the act. And we have currently 17 Insurance Act directives and 4 consumer protection directives. The screen may be scary. I will not go through each and every one, but there's one highlighted in red. That's the Inclusive Insurance Directive. This one is microinsurance. Apparently, the term inclusive insurance kind of gives it more weight as opposed to microinsurance. This is a directive which, when issued, we thought would really bring up the market in terms of microinsurance and also help maybe with licensing some of the smaller entities or even the fintechs and insurtechs. But for one reason or the other, we haven't seen much movement in the area. So it's an area of concern for us, which we are really trying to look into to see how we can remedy and see some movement in that area. What we have here, the consumer protection directives. So on the one part, the Insurance Act directives are more or less the prudential side of things, while for consumer protection, this is mainly how you go about market conduct. So at one point or the other, as people go into the market, you can have high hopes with the insurance directives, but then the consumer protection side, you also have to put in measures that whoever it is, the policyholders and everyone else really are protected and get some protection and are well covered. So touching on InsurTech, unfortunately for Malawi, as we stand currently, we do not have any laws or regulations to govern InsurTech. It is an area that is relatively new. We have had a number of requests that have sort of made us to see how we can move into this area. And at the moment, if there's an InsurTech coming in on any fintech, what we do is advise them to see how best they can work with any of the insurance companies to see how their product can come in. And if they do get to have an agreement, then the product, they ride on the back of the insurer and they bring it as a new product, and then we approve from there. We've noted a number of times where insurtechs would not be able to agree with insurers for one reason or the other. So the next line would possibly be advise the insurtech to see how closely they are related, their business is related to any of the financial institutions in the market, let's say as a broker or as an agent, in which case we would advise them to possibly see if they could get a license as an agent or a broker, and then they can proceed with their business. But that is not an ideal situation, because for the mainstream areas, financial institutions, they do have their own stringent measures, sometimes maybe in terms of capital or in terms of fit and properness of the principal officers, which are taxing on insurtechs. So in that aspect, we do recognize the shortfalls that we have on the market. And we've got a number of measures that we are trying to put in to remedy the situation. So far, we have formulated a fintech and regulatory innovation task force. You will recall that I said we are an integrated regulator, so we cannot really go the route of insurtech. So right now we are doing fintech to encompass all the areas that are being regulated, and from there we will then go down to each sector, fintech and so forth. So this is an area that we've seen that can benefit in terms of financial inclusion, protection of consumers, as well as reducing the costs of some of these business ventures. So from that task force, the route that is being envisaged right now is to set up an innovation office where we can firstly interact with fintech innovators, do our research. We are about to conduct a baseline survey to see exactly where we are in terms of fintech innovations, because we could be in a position where we think there's a lot of them out there, but maybe we just have a few. And is it really a route that we want to take? And most likely see which one would be the best route in terms of sandboxes or any other routes that we would likely suit us best. So from there, it's when we will develop the appropriate policy and regulatory framework for the various sectors that we can roll out. So in that process, we've got a number of we've got some assistance from the IMF, World Bank, and a number of consultants where we are looking at, and we always look around what our neighboring regulators are doing in the region. So I wouldn't be surprised if we borrowed a leaf from maybe Kenya, Uganda, and when we are coming up with our final product. So in short, that's what I have for you right now. Malawi, it's a very high level presentation. I hope it assists. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kwagwanji, for your elaborate presentation on the Malawi experience. I'd encourage us to comment on the chat, but I think maybe some initial reactions from me was that, of course, despite you giving the disclaimer that you are an integrated regulator, I think there are specific steps that you're actually taking to enable innovation within your jurisdiction. And I think it in some instances it may actually be an advantage to have a comprehensive framework that cuts across various sectors, that is the capital markets, pensions, and the others. So I think that is very clear that indeed there's some convergence from the various regulators, including yourselves, to develop or at least to enable innovation. Maybe just to go back to the statistics that you gave at the beginning, which I was very keen to understand, and I noticed that in fact your insurance density was, I think, $7, and I think, which is actually even higher than Kenya. I think Kenya is around $5. That is the total premiums over the population. So I think these metrics actually help us understand, certain, how the uptake of insurance is and what are the gaps. I also saw that the penetration was 1.57%, which is, I think, it's comparable to other African countries. I think Kenya, we should be at around 2.4% in terms of the insurance penetration as a percentage of the gross domestic product. I was just curious what the coverage would be. So maybe later you can check for us in terms of the number of lives that actually have any form of insurance. Then finally, I think it was also good to see that the mobile money penetration, I think, was at 58%, which is, I think, comparable to Kenya as well. So I think the data that you've provided it's very clear that there are actually opportunities for innovators to leverage on. So I don't know. I think there's one comment. Let me just check if the okay. We don't have any comments. I don't know whether there's anybody who has a comment and is willing to raise their hand and ask Mr. Kwagwanji any questions about Malawi and his presentation.
Maybe Moses, just to get back on you on the statistics.
Yes.
I would need to put it out there that in Malawi we have a mandatory pension. Pension is mandatory in Malawi. It was made mandatory by the Pension Act, and part of the Pension Act requires that each employee has a life insurance policy of 1 times annual salary. So the coming in of the Pension Act actually also boosted the insurance premiums for the life insurance. So that's one of the aspects that needs to be taken into account. But otherwise, you find that most of the premiums are actually concentrated in the urban areas and they are not really across the country. So that's a concern as well, that most of these premiums are just for a few in employment, formal employment, and so forth. Thank
you. Thank you for that clarification. And I think the case, I mean, we have a similar case in our market as well, where the compulsory, insurance classes are the ones that actually contribute the highest. But of course, I think in our market here in Kenya, the biggest challenge is, of course, literacy, and how to inform the general public on the need for insurance coverage or protection for various risks. I saw Mr. James Dwiga, your hand is up. Maybe you have a comment for Kwagwanji.
Yeah, I have a question, not really a comment. And my question is, I think the presenter talked about an agreement that sometimes is done between maybe the innovator and the insurance company. I don't know how they enforce that agreement, and then if the product or the arrangement has been done and the product is properly running, but then there's a disagreement, how do they tackle it? Do they pull out that product out of the market, or what happens? Or if the underwriter is ready to go on with the product, do they force the underwriter to take that product out of the market because the other partner is not participating? So I would like to understand how they do it. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you for that question. In fact, it's one of the areas that we've seen that we cannot proceed as it is because we cannot properly have control over those licenses. So if the insurtech goes to the insurance company, they need to agree amongst themselves. The regulator has no control over the terms of the agreement and how they are going to be paying each other, or the commission and everything else. What we just see, what we are interested in is the end product, if it complies with the insurance laws, and then if it's okay, then they proceed. So it's up to the insurance company and the fintech to really agree and have the formal legal backing, or lawyers to have something in writing that can cover them properly. That said, we've actually seen 2 of the products that have gone that route. You see that insurance company cannot do the product on their own. So after a year or so, when they see that the product is quite lucrative, they try to find their own technicians or expertise to carry the product forward. And usually what happens is that there's now disagreements, and at the end of the day, we've seen both of those products withdrawn from the market because the insurtech will approach us and say, we are no longer providing the support, in which case we also say now the product is no longer viable in the market, so please withdraw it. So we are hoping that with some legislation that come in, we can see how best to protect the insurtech as well as the insurers, because one is operating from a position of power when we say go and sell your product, but we want to have a situation where everyone is an equal partner and it goes forth. Possibly we can learn from other jurisdictions how they do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, James Dwiga and Kwagwanji. I don't know whether there are any other comments or questions for Kwagwanji before we proceed to the next presenter. Okay, so at this juncture, I would like to invite Mr. Hafiz Mohammed to just share the experience in Ghana. Welcome, Mr. Hafiz. I think we were able to see your screen initially that had been shared, but maybe you can just try sharing it again. Yes, now we can see your screen and we can see your presentation. Welcome, Hafiz.
Evening.
Good evening.
Hello. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen, although it is not in the presenter mode on our end.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
We can see your screen, but it is not in the presentation mode. But please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity. So the insurance market in Ghana, the National Insurance Commission is responsible for the regulation and supervision of the insurance industry, with the exception of health insurance and pensions. The health insurance is regulated by the National Health Insurance Authority, whilst the pension is regulated by the National Pensions Regulatory Authority. There are presently 154 licensed firms made up of 27 non-life insurers, 20 life insurers, 3 reinsurers, 108 insurance brokers, and 2 loss adjusters. There are also 4 technical service providers. With the licensed insurers, with the life and non-life, there are about 10,000 licensed tied agents. On average, in the last decade, the insurance sector has grown by 25%, with about 500 million in 2010 to about 4.2 billion by close of 2020. Insurance penetration is about 1.8 million, and insurance density is around 30%, quite high.
Sorry, Mr. Hafiz. Sorry to interrupt. I think we are not seeing the slides moving. So I don't know whether
So maybe let me just stop and get my screen corrected. Sorry about that.
Yes.
Just a second. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. Maybe
Not
you
yet.
can. Not yet.
Okay.
We were able to see the presentation, but it wasn't in the presenters mode. But I think you don't have to put it in the presenters mode.
All right.
Yes, you can just share it the way it is.
Let me see. Just a second.
Okay.
Can you see?
Yes, it's coming. I don't know. Okay, yes, we can see it now. I think this mode, presentation mode, is still in order.
Sorry, I missed that.
No, I'm saying now now we can see. Please proceed.
All right. Okay. So sorry about. Should I start again, just so that?
Yes, you can start from this slide. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So for the insurance sector in Ghana, health insurance and pensions are regulated by its separate entity. So like I stated earlier, the National Health Insurance Authority, and then the National Pensions Regulatory Authority. Presently, there are 154 licensed firms made up of 27 non-life insurers, 20 life insurers, 3 reinsurance companies, 108 insurance brokers, and 2 loss adjusters. There are also 4 technical service providers. And with the licensed insurers, we have over 10,000 tied agents. On average, the insurance sector grows by about 25%. Insurance penetration by close of 2020 is around 1.8%, with an insurance density of around 30%. The Insurance Act has been replaced with a 2021 Act 1061. In terms of capital requirements, the minimum capital requirement for life and non-life insurers is 50 million Ghana cedis. That is about 8.3 million USD. For reinsurers, their minimum capital requirement is 125 million Ghana cedis. That's around 20.8 million USD. For insurance brokers, they have about 500,000 Ghana cedis, about 83,000 USD. And then the loss adjusters, about 500,000 Ghana cedis. Now, in terms of the regulatory strategy around innovation, the NIC's strategic plan intends to focus essentially on expanding insurance frontiers through the the expansion of insurance penetration and then insurance density. And one of the cardinal principles around the strategy is also around treating customers fairly and also expanding the technological frontiers. There's also a strategy around improving the effectiveness and efficiency of the regulator through the development of fit-for-purpose record management systems for the purposes of transmitting records between regulated entities and the insurance companies. And one of the key things that have happened is the development of databases for some compulsory insurances. So for example, motor insurance, there's a motor insurance database that has been developed and is working effectively because motor is compulsory. And so we have designed an underwriting motor insurance database that allow for insurers to underwrite directly on the system, just to ensure that there are no undercutting and etc. There are also collaborations with the Inclusive Insurance Innovative Lab to help in the development of the micro and small business clinics. To ensure that there is development of micro insurance products for the micro and small scale industry. Sorry. There have also been some essential guidelines that have been developed to ensure that some of these key initiatives around innovations work. So, for example, the NIC has issued guidelines for technical service providers, and essentially that guidelines is to be able to allow for strategic collaborations between the technical service providers and insurers. So it is not more about just the transactionally arrangements that comes between technical service providers, but to ensure that there are strategic collaborations among these entities and insurers. There are also guidelines around corporate agencies. So, for example, bank assurance arrangements, there are guidelines around it. Corporate agencies that want to find space to work on the insurance markets. And then there's also the bit about the digitalization of the regulators' operations, where we have seen the development of a regulatory software that would allow for reporting electronically to the regulator, and also for the submission of correspondence and returns between the regulator and insurance companies. In terms of the regulatory developments that support innovations, the new Insurance Act has provisions that allow for the issuance of what we now term the innovative insurance license. What we have had in the past is to actually issue guidelines to allow for persons who wants to operate in the insurance space, whether you want to do that from the technical service level, or you want to operate as a corporate agent. Now, the new Insurance Act actually allows for persons to be given licensing to operate on the market. Presently, the regulation around this is being developed. There are also guidelines, like I stated earlier, around the operations of the technical service providers. And then there's also the micro-insurance market conduct rule that guides the operations of micro-insurance in the country. And then the NIC is also looking at establishing a regulatory sandbox environment to give impetus to the new provisions of the Act. Just by way of detail, so this new Act, what it does is that it actually promotes the development, the sale and distribution of inclusive and mobile insurance products on our market. There's also the bit I spoke about, the issuance of innovative insurance licensing. And then there are also extensive provisions around the establishment of innovative intermediary license that would allow persons who want to operate on the market as intermediaries to support the transmission of insurance through the use of technology on our markets. So basically, this is just a brief for Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hafiz, for that wonderful presentation. I think we have a comment, but I think members can just raise their hands. I think my initial reaction to your presentation is that Ghana seems to be, very much ahead of its peers, in the sense that you have actually issued, or within your regulation or Insurance Act, you've actually provided for a license category for innovators. So I think this is a very positive step, and I'm sure the cohort participants here would be eager to learn more about what are the requirements around those, because I think eventually most regulators would want to adopt such an approach towards having a specific license category, as opposed to the trying to fit within the current entities or the current licensees. So I want to commend Ghana on that. The other thing that I wanted to comment on was on the strategic plan, and I think you talked about it at the beginning, where as the National Insurance Commission, you have made a very deliberate move to have specific goals around innovation, which is, I think, very important for at least to set the foundation for some of these initiatives to take place. And finally, I when you were presenting the statistics for Ghana, I was interested again in the penetration, which I found, similar to what had been presented earlier from the other jurisdictions, is at 1.8%. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for growth.
Right.
For that. What was interesting was on the insurance density. I wasn't sure. Maybe you could elaborate more on the density.
Okay, so it is largely because health insurance. We have the National Health Insurance Program that allows for a lot of lives to be insured. So it actually adds to the numbers.
Okay. So at this juncture, I would request that if you have a question for Mr. Hafiz Mohammed, you can please raise it on the chat, or you can raise your hand. Even as we proceed, we have one comment from David, although I think this is directed towards Uganda. So I will just read it, and then we can have the regulator from Rwanda commenting on it after the session of Mr. Hafiz. So David is asking, with the regulatory framework underpinning Uganda IRA, and in light of local business environment, what opportunities exist for regional insurtechs, that is East Africa or beyond, to participate? Or is this still a gray area? So I'd request that Mr. Katete, you can hold on to that. We have Mr. Elias Omondi who has raised his hand, and I think he has a question for Hafiz. Yes, Elias, and then followed by James. Please go ahead, Elias.
Yeah, that's impressive, and in fact, Ghana has the latest Insurance Act. It's a document that I've been trying to read. I don't know whether you can see it.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, I've been trying to go through this, and one of the most, I would say, enlightening thing with this act, it states that there are two components that Ghana is looking at. One is an innovative insurance license, and also they are talking about an innovative insurance intermediary license. Now, my question to Hafiz, where does this place the insurtechs that would want to operate across the entire value chain of the insurance system, from distribution to risk taking? Would they require to get an innovative insurance license and also an innovative insurance intermediary license? How are you intending to balance this? This basically in section 211 of your act. I'll soon be an expert in this document.
All right, so thank you very much, Elias. Both ways, with the insurance intermediary license, presently we have issued guidelines for the technical service provider. So, for example, a telco wants to use its medium for the purposes of selling insurance. We may license you as an intermediary in that regard. But if you have an insurtech and you want to operate by selling insurance on our market, that is where the regulations around the innovation license would be issued. And what we are trying to do is to develop regulations around it to expand this frontier so that it makes it easier for us to clearly delineate between what an insurance intermediary license would do and then the innovative insurance license. But for the purposes of this discussion, the insurance intermediary license persons would not operate as on the market as an insurer. So, but if you are given an innovative insurance license, your capital requirements may be completely different from the traditional insurance companies, but you will be allowed to operate in a sandbox environment, sort of. So you operate in a limited scale on our market, basically.
Right. Now there's something interesting also with your new act, and this is around, and maybe it's good to mention for the guys that would really want to operate there. It mentions that this innovative insurance license applies only for a period of 2 years. It cannot exceed 2 years. So
Yes.
and basically what I'm looking at here, it's an innovative way of talking about a sandbox.
Right.
But here, what I see is like an open-ended sandbox. It's not thematic. It's not policy guided. But you are bringing in a sandbox component through an innovative license. And is that rightly, if I could summarize that?
Exactly. That's it. Yes.
Yeah, so then it's quite exciting to see that in Ghana you can get a regulatory sandbox type of an environment for a period of 2 years. Thanks, Hafiz.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Elias, for that interjection. And we have Mr. James Dwigger, who has raised his hand. Maybe Dwigger, you can just go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much for the nice presentation. I think my question is about the innovative insurance guideline. I'm wondering, what is the scope of this guideline? Does it cover insurance companies or which entities? Does it cover the intermediaries? Does it cover the service providers? And if it covers, then why does it cover issue of the sandbox? Or that's why you are saying you are to maybe come up with a framework for the sandbox?
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. So it covers all of what you have mentioned. So it covers the technical service providers. But depending on the level at which you operate on our market, you can be categorized as an insurance intermediary, an innovative insurance intermediary, or an innovative insurance operator. So if it is you selling insurance, underwriting, and etc. on our market, then that is where the insurance innovative license will be issued. But if it is about using your medium for the purposes of selling insurance or to be collaborating with an insurance company, then that is where the insurance intermediary bit comes in.
Are you able to share that guideline with maybe more?
Very well. I have soft, so if I get your email, I'll quickly share to you.
Okay.
Is the act, not the guidelines.
Oh, it's the act, the one Elias was sharing.
Yes, it's the act. So he has the act. Yes.
Oh, if he has the act, then we get it.
So yeah, I read all the insurance acts in Africa nowadays, so you can ask me any regulations across the continent.
Thank you very much, James, and thank you so much, Hafiz, for that. We have one comment from Joel from Motisho, and he says, "Hi, I'm not sure if this has been addressed yet, but I'm curious about the AFCFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area, and whether, stroke how, that would maybe help in policy across different regions for insurance." So I don't think we have tackled that yet, Joel, but I would like to give Hafiz an opportunity to respond, and then I can also comment. Okay, maybe before Hafiz responds, I think many of our countries are actually signatories to this agreement. I think this is through the African Union. But in terms of the insurance regulatory requirements, I can only talk on behalf of the Kenyan experience and possibly the East African experience. We've tried to harmonize our insurance legislation through the East African community. I'm even happy that the next presenter, Mr. Stephen, would be able to talk about this, because this is something that he has worked on as part of the technical working group. We have actually tried to harmonize some of our licensing requirements, and I think the output of that process was that we actually had model legislation for adoption, but I think this has yet to go through. So it may not be along the lines of the African Continental Free Trade Area, but at least I know in East Africa there are initiatives towards harmonizing the insurance legislation. So I don't know whether Hafiz, you have any comments, or Kwagwanji from
No, except that I've seen Elias' hand up, so maybe Elias has comments.
Okay, Elias, you want to comment on that?
Right. Yeah. So maybe I can just make a quick comment on this piece. Now, one of the key things that if you go through this document, the policy that is looking to guide Africa towards, I would say, a seamless operationalization of a number of services. There are quite a number of, I would say, friction around the financial system, particularly when it comes to financial related services. But one of the key things that also comes out in that particular document is how they are looking at innovation, particularly for innovations that would, in a way, scale a couple of components that would ease and even increase the outlook towards adoption of financial products and services. And I know there's some work that is currently being done across the region. Initially, in East Africa, I know Moses has spoken about harmonization of regulations. And again, the challenge that comes with that is that some countries are at different levels. And the only thing that could be done in that particular front is coming up with what we call, I would say, some principles to guide how business do operate. Now, when it comes to insurtechs, the key thing that maybe we might need to think about and push through the African Continent Free Trade Area is what we call the insurtech passporting, or create an insurtech bridge across Africa. So is it possible to passport an innovation and maybe work to make it work in Ghana once it has gotten the test and approval, say in a country like Kenya? So I think there's work that needs to be done in that level that would highly support insurtechs, particularly through an approach of insurtech passporting or creating insurtech bridges across the continent. But yep, there's a lot that that particular document talks about, particularly on innovation. And I think it's an area that we can pursue with a number of regulators in the region to see how to actualize some of these great documents that are coming up, and some of these policies that are created through this framework around the African Continent Free Trade Area. Thanks.
Elias, I have a question to Elias. What do you mean by passporting? Do you want to say that if Kenyans have approved a product, the people from Ghana don't need to really look at it and review it?
Now, the issue here is that what needs to happen, it's the same way when you're traveling to another country. There's some key things that you have to kind of comply with. So there's a checkbox system that will happen. You wouldn't go through the entire scrutiny. You won't ask which village are you coming from, or who are your neighbors and all that. The thing is that you have a document. There are a couple of things that you are going to complete before gaining entry to that country. Is it possible to create a standard for that? So for instance, is that if an innovation has gone through the test and you have approved it in Kenya, now there are key areas that you are checking in Kenya and you don't really need to go through the same process. Say, for instance, in Ghana, the only thing that we might need to create are what are these key components. As you are allowing for that entry, there is something that will kind of enable you to identify with that particular innovation. That's why I'm calling it a passporting kind of. It's the same way you go to another country with a passport, and ideally your details are captured and that's it. And there are a few checks that are made, then you've gained entry in that particular country. But what needs to happen are, what are these key things that we need to have across the region that would be used as a standard?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elias, for that. And I hope, Joel, your question was answered to your satisfaction. Because we are running out of time, I would like to request the final presenter, Mr. Stephen Biganiro from Rwanda, to give his presentation. Welcome, Stephen. And even as you share your screen, you can also comment possibly later at the end on the harmonization of the regulatory requirements. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you, Moses, and I hope it's a good evening to everyone in Africa. Moses made a thorough introduction to each and every panelist.
Wandime, you can mute. Wandime, all right.
Okay. So I was saying that I hope it's a good evening to everyone in Africa. And I was saying that Moses made a thorough introduction to all the panelists. So my name is Stephen. I want to go beyond that in terms of introduction. So as Moses requested, let me start by responding to the issue that has been raised, at least to the level of the East African community. One of the things that I remember we have done in terms of developing the regulations that are recognized at the ESC level. I remember we developed the insurance bill, and as far as I remember, at the technical working group level, it was finalized, and if I remember well, it was at the sectoral council, of which we did not have access to know what decisions were made at that level. In addition to the bill, we also developed and worked on different implementing regulations to that bill, though it was yet to be approved to be the act. And I remember we worked on around 21 regulations that were implementing the insurance bill. And as far as I remember, if all those are put into consideration and implemented, at least we will see a harmonized insurance market at the level of the ESC. That's all that I can respond with regard to that question, Mr. Moses. So if you allow me, I can go into the presentation that I have prepared.
Yes, thank you very much. Please proceed.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk about the regulatory environment across the continent. Specifically, then I'll be talking about Rwanda, especially on the current approaches that BNR as the insurance regulator is using to support innovators within our jurisdiction. As part of introduction, like our friends in Malawi, we don't have an independent regulatory authority for insurance. We are working under the National Bank of Rwanda, which is the central bank, but nonetheless, that does not prohibit us to come up with innovative ideas that are specific to our department that is in charge of insurance regulation. To start with, our insurance sector is still shallow, with the insurance penetration rate at 1.8, and with the gross premium at 99 billion Rwandan francs. The sector is mostly dominated by motor and medical insurance, and as at June 2021, these had around 60% of the total private insurance premiums. In addition to that, when I go directly into the areas of innovation, over the last decade, we have been having several initiatives that we've been taking, especially towards innovation and development of the insurance sector in Rwanda. And in this, we have seen quite a number of regulations and new being changed, welcoming new players, and then strengthening our processes within the sector. We conceive innovation as anything that has anything related to new regulations, new regulatory tools, approaches, innovation of products, processes, distribution panels, payment systems, services, and all these should be adding to the bringing new value and then innovation to the sector. In terms of players, we have around 15 insurance companies, and among these we have 3 life insurance companies, 9 non-life insurance companies, 2 public insurance companies, and then 1 micro insurance company. We have 15 brokers, one of which is a reinsurance broker, and then we have around 18 loss adjusters, and then 1,454 insurance agents, plus 8 bank assurance banks, including 1 micro bank assurance. In terms of capital that is required, first of all, I have to inform you that currently we have a moratorium for new insurers, which I think that anytime the moratorium will be removed. But in terms of capital required for non-life, it's now Rwandan francs 3 billion and 2 billion for life. 200 million Rwandan francs for either life or non-life microinsurance company, and 300 for composite. And then for brokers, it's 50 million Rwandan francs, and for reinsurance company, it's 5 billion Rwandan francs. The exchange rate with USD now it is at around 1,009. So in case anyone would love to convert to USD to know the exact amount, you can use that rate currently. In terms of innovation approaches that we have taken, as I told you, we've had an overhaul reform in terms of the regulations that we had, and in terms of coming up with the new regulations. An example of one of the regulations that we had to change to cater for innovation was the regulation on licensing requirements for insurers and reinsurers of 2009 to the regulation on licensing conditions for insurers and reinsurers of 2018, whereby specifically on the issue of innovation, its Article 9 talks about obligations to demonstrate the value and the innovation to the market whereby we require applicants to demonstrate commitment to have value addition and innovation in the market. And in this license is granted upon BNL's conviction that the applicant has an innovation or anything that adds value to the market. The other regulation that we had to change is the regulation on corporate governance that came up with that came up in 2017, and this specifically wanted us to encourage the sector to improve on the corporate governance, on the issues of risk management, internal controls, and especially on the lines of defense, and then in a way of adopting to the international standards, especially on the ICPs on corporate governance principles. We also issued a directive on conduct of insurance to improve on the issues of underwriting practices. And this specifically was looking at the at how we can assist the insurance companies to develop new underwriting policies or strategies, as well as having clear procedures on how to establish premium rates. This maybe I will have to highlight that before this directive, insurers were using similar premium rates, and then with this, at least each and every insurance company have its own insurance premium rates that are checked and approved by independent actuaries. We have a number of regulations that have come in place, and I mean, some of those regulations that we've had amendments, including coming up with a regulation on combating fraud and in the insurance sector, the issues of microinsurance framework to increase the insurance uptake, especially by looking at the underserved and unserved population. We also issued a regulation on bank assurance, and then in terms of reporting, we established a regulation on electronic data warehouse, whereby this helped us to reduce the time it was taking the supervised institutions to prepare the data outputs and analysis. And in this, we saw ourselves being able to get a report in 5 days after the end of the quarter, compared to the month that we could wait after the end of the quarter before this regulation. Again, to improve on the local capacity, we, especially in terms of coinsurance, we issued a directive on underwriting of big risks, whereby now for each and every company to take any risk outside at least the Association of Insurance and the regulator should be informed to know that at least that list cannot be managed within our jurisdiction. The other approach that we are using to promote innovation and then develop the insurance sector is some of the awareness campaigns. We have been able to establish specialized departments within the central bank that are in charge of looking at how there could be insurance inclusion and then increase the insurance uptake. Some of those divisions or department include the Financial Sector Development and Inclusion Department, and then the Market Conduct Supervision Department that is also in charge of financial education. We have also had some financial education sessions, one of which is one of the initiative that is called BNL Engage, whereby we engage students from different regions of the country to have some competitions in the line of insurance. And then we also have insurance weeks, whereby we work with other insurance players, and then we educate the public on insurance. This have seen us increasing the insurance uptake. We are also using our social platforms, national TVs, and then radios to convey or educate the public on insurance. The other issue or approach that we are using today that we have seen working for us is one of the initiatives that was developed by the government, which is called the National Agriculture Strategy. Under this strategy, we are looking at the underserved and the population that is not served, especially when we look at farmers. For livestock, the strategy looks at those people that have livestock and want to take insurance. They go through this strategy, and then the government will pay 40% of the premium, and then the policyholders will have to meet the 60%. This is for livestock, and also for crop insurance. The government pays 40% of the premium, and then as the policyholder has to pay for 60%. This is an initiative that has helped us, especially to increase the insurance uptake. The other issue or approach that we are using today is the use of fintech insurance facilitators, one of which is the Innovation Lab. Rwanda is part of the initiative of the IAIS and the Access to Insurance Initiative, whereby in the second phase, Rwanda was part of the participants. And it is from this initiative that one of the the team members have to come up and convene a national dialogues, and again at the international level, to come up with innovative solutions on how to increase the insurance uptake and the businesses. And from this initiative, although it is still a pilot study, through this initiative, we saw a number of citizens being assisted to have a pension, to open their pension accounts, and some of these citizens have been given a starting point whereby some of these citizens have been given pension savings, and then we are looking forward for these citizens to continue from there. And it is an initiative, of course, that we are working hand in hand with other insurance players, including insurers. And it is our hope that even insurance companies can take the same initiative, whereby they would pay or give some insurance for some citizens, at least for them to know what insurance can do, and see if such citizens can continue from there. The other approach is the regulatory sandbox. This is still in pipeline. We are still in the process of developing a regulation that is not at its final level as of now. But the purpose of this regulatory sandbox will be looking at how we can enable innovators to come up with financial products or services and solutions, and then how we can foster responsible financial innovations that benefit financial consumers by improving the quality of access to and usage of financial products and services. And finally, by this regulatory sandbox, we'll be looking at how we can set application eligibility requirements and appropriate safeguards on how to identify and manage potential risks that may come along this new approach. Yeah, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. Back to you, Moses.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for the wonderful presentation. And I have maybe just a few reactions. I was very interested to note that in Rwanda you have a license category for microinsurance, which is, I think, it's very unique. I know here in Kenya, we have recently issued microinsurance regulations, and we are yet to license the same. And I do know that there's a preference for, innovative insurance company to opt for that specific license category. So I want to commend Rwanda for that initiative on that specific license category. I also noted that you're in the process of you've actually reviewed your regulations to provide for innovation, and also you have participated in the access to insurance initiative. So I think there are a lot of steps that are being, that have been taken by yourselves to foster or encourage innovation. What stuck out to me again was the penetration rate, which is 1.8%. I think this is the third jurisdiction which I've seen 1.8%, which I think there's a lot of, there's room for growth for us. So at this juncture, I would like to invite any comments or questions. I see Elias Omondi has his hand up. Maybe Elias, you can go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And that's tremendous work that has been done in Rwanda. Now, Rwanda is a very interesting, I would say, country. Now, if most of you have followed Rwanda, Rwanda is the only country that Jack Ma has visited twice. And I think in October in 2019, Jack Ma and the Rwandese government signed an electronic world trade platform, which basically under Alibaba's trademark, they are calling it an EWTP. And that basically made Rwanda the first African country to launch a platform that in a way would allow Alibaba and the Rwandese government to set up e-commerce, e-tourism, e-payment, and capacity building. So my question to Steve, in terms of what Alibaba's electronic world trade platform is doing, how is insurance leveraging on such tremendous opportunities that allows for innovation, given that Rwanda is the only country in Africa and whose government managed to sign for such a world-changing I would say a super platform that changes the way trade and the way innovators will be looking at various products in future. How is the Ministry of Finance plugging into that particular avenue?
Yeah, thank you, Elias. Now, one of the responses to such concerns is the development of the regulatory sandbox. Yeah, I think it is under this regulatory sandbox that we are hopeful to see such innovations coming out, and then how we can deal with them. But as of now, there is no clear way on how insurance platform is open to the world with regard to what we are doing today. But we are hoping that with the regulatory sandbox, such innovations will come out, and then we see how we can deal with them and how we can come up with the new regulatory approaches on how to deal with such kind of innovation that may be trading across Africa and then the world at large. But as of now, there is no specific approach to answer to exactly what you have raised. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen and Elias. We have a comment from Dwiga or a question.
Yeah, I have a question as well as a comment. Thank you for that great presentation from Rwanda. I have noted that you mentioned that you have one micro insurer, And when I look at its capital requirement, it seems lower than what is required for a normal underwriter. So, for how long have you been? Maybe you have operationalized microinsurance, and why are the numbers? Why is the number lower than even the numbers that we have for insurance? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. You know, we are just trying to promote this sector of microinsurance. It just started. The regulation was issued last year, and so you can see that is still at infant level, and still the required capital is low, simply because we are trying to encourage new entrants to enter that field. But as you know, regulation, the more we get new applicants, the more now we'll be looking at what the challenges are. We need to increase the regulatory capital. And now again, since the targeted population under microinsurance are these people that do not have a lot of capacity, still you won't limit a lot of people to enter into the business. We are opening for the people to enter into the business and see how we can regulate around issues that may arise going forward. And if a need is there, then we can change the approaches and then the requirements. But as of now, we are doing that specifically to attract new entrants into that sector.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, James and Stephen. Thank you for that presentation. I think we're running out of time, and we had set out initially to have a panel discussion with some questions, but I think I will just ask one question to each of the presenters. But before that, we had a question from David from Orbit KE for Uganda. And maybe I'll just read it out loud for Mr. Kevin Katete, and then I will just ask one question for each of the panelists or each of the presenters today. So David asked this was a question that was specific to Uganda. With regulatory framework underpinning Uganda IRA and in light of local business environment, what opportunities exist for regional insurtechs, East Africa or beyond, to participate? Or is it still a gray area? So maybe Kevin Katete, you can just respond to that. And then I will just ask one final question to each of the participants so that we can close today's session.
Okay, thank you, Moses. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, so Uganda, I think from all the presentations, our penetration is currently the lowest at 0.77%. So if you're coming as a regional company, you're coming to a country that is at a low base, meaning that the potential is pretty high. There's so many areas that are emerging in Uganda. We have the oil and gas sector that is just about to start. We have regulations around Takaful that we intend to kickstart once they have been passed by cabinet. We have a special interest by the government in agriculture, where we contribute 50% to the premium, and it's an area that has been growing. Bank assurance as well is something that kickstarted in 2017 and has seen this growth. We also have a microinsurance sector as well. We have microinsurance guidelines that require microinsurance organization to have, I said 100 million Uganda shillings, which is roughly $27,000 US, as capital as compared to the insurer that would be required to have 6 billion, which is more than, I think that is about 60 times the amount. And so there are plenty of areas where there are opportunities for investment with Uganda. One of the things with our law is that you're required to be domiciled in Uganda. So that is one thing you'd have to take into account. Then the other thing is we've also seen fintechs that come as insurance agents. Yeah, they build from the ground up. They come with their platform and with their solution, partner with the insurance company, and give the insurance company access to a particular market that had no access to insurance before. And we've seen that with insurance agents like Turaco that did that, and Turaco is now a broker. And they're purely a fintech, but they have taken advantage of the current structures within our regulatory framework and actually used the license. They didn't need to go through the regulatory sandbox. I think the sandbox in itself is an opportunity as well that you could consider. Yeah, and I hope I have answered your question. I submit.
Thank you very much. Is that sufficient, David? Maybe you can just
yes. You've resourcefully answered it. I appreciate it. So my takeaway from that is then that insurtechs only have space to come in as collaborators, or they come as a product or a distribution channel, and therefore there is possibly no room for disruption. I mean, the regulations pin insurtechs and fintechs down to being a collaborator as opposed to disruptor in the regional environment or landscape.
Okay, thank you for that. That was the initial status quo for a long time. Our regulations are actually specific to that. However, with the regulatory sandbox, we are trying to look for an opportunity to see how you can come and operate under a controlled environment so that we can appreciate what risk you bring to the market and what would need in terms of regulation or guidelines in order to be able to regulate a fintech. The challenge with setting regulation before you actually understand the risk, it's like trying to regulate the ocean, you know. We need to actually define the different corners, horizons, risks that we have within our power to control. And then from that, we also are looking for opportunities as well for innovation. So I think, yes, there's that inhibitants to disruption within the regulations themselves. However, there are other avenues to come into our market, especially through the sandbox, and actually disrupt the market. I submit.
Thank you very much, Kevin, and sorry for hurrying you, given the constraints that we have in terms of time. Thank you, David, for confirming that the response is sufficient. Maybe just by way of closing, because I realize we run out of time and we may need to end this session for today. But of course, we will still continue engaging on email, and at least we are very clear as to who the panelists are. Maybe by way of closing, we can have maybe some closing remarks from each of the presenters for today, and hopefully you can also comment on what you're doing going forward within your jurisdiction, so that in case David from Orbit KE wants to come and incorporate his insurtech, he's able to do so. So I would like to invite Mr. Kwagwanji, and thereafter followed by Hafiz, and then Stephen from Rwanda, and then Kevin Katete by way of closing. Welcome, Kwagwanji.
Yep. Thank you, Moses. I would just like to thank everyone, and especially for giving me as well an opportunity here to present. It's nice to learn from other jurisdictions as well, and it's also given me an opportunity to hear what the innovators are actually thinking, what their thought process is. So as we are about to embark on this project for fintech and insurtech, so it's really been eye-opening. If anyone would want to contact me, Moses has my email. Please feel free to get in touch. And for me, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kwagwanji. Maybe Mr. Hafiz Mohammed.
All right. Thank you very much. I think the discussions have been very insightful. We have learned a lot from each country's experience. And my key takeaway is that there is one commonality, that the insurance space in Africa, there's huge potential for growth. And I think that innovation would be the game changer. And so I look forward to further discussions like this, so that we will continue to learn from each jurisdiction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hafiz. And Mr. Stephen, you can give your closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Moses. Thank you, everyone. It was really good to meet and have such an insightful discussion around our continent and innovation in insurance sector. I have really learned a lot from my colleagues, and it was really great to hear from them. I've learned a lot of things, and I'm looking forward to contacting them even on issues that we may need to upgrade in case of our jurisdiction. And for the issues of insurtech, I think the antidote to this is the regulatory sandbox. And I think with the implementation of this, we will have the sector open to different innovators from the world. So that's all that I can say. Have a good evening to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Stephen. And finally, Mr. Kevin Katete from Uganda, you can give your closing remarks.
Okay, I'd like to thank Bima Lab. I'd like to thank FSB Africa and thank my colleagues from the other regulators for the eye-opening presentations. My take from all this is that we're becoming a smaller and smaller global village, and as regulators, it appears that our role seems to be traditionally inhibiting, and there's more of a push towards being more of enablers. And we'll definitely need the guidance of each and every regulator, as well as the guidance from the fintechs as well, to help us in doing our role as enablers, as well as protecting the policyholders for whom we exist. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Katete. So as Kwagwanji said, this is not the end of the discussion. We will continue to engage, and we will indeed share your contacts. That is the contacts of the regulators, especially with the cohort participants, in case of any specific queries that you may have. So at this juncture, I would like to thank the regulators who are represented here for taking the time out of their busy schedules to come and at least share with us their experiences and what they're doing to ensure that the innovation continues to thrive within their various jurisdictions. I also want to thank the participants and the attendees for today's session. I know it was a bit rushed, but of course, It was because the discussions were quite engaging, and we do hope that the Bima Lab will of course possibly provide an opportunity to take this discussion further. So at this juncture, I want to say thank you to all of you. I don't know whether we have maybe somebody from the Bima Lab. Maybe we can have Emma just to close the session and give us the next steps. Oh, okay. In the absence of Emma.
Yeah, says Emma is not on the call. I
Okay.
think we can end the session.
Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. We really do appreciate the time you've taken to attend this session. We will continue to engage in future. And of course, specifically the cohort members, you should be able to reach out directly through the Bima Lab. Thank you very much and have a nice evening.
Thank you, Moses.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Nice.